Let's look at the workflow to add 3D models coming from Blender into Unity. And I have a Unity scene open, Unity project. And really what you do is open up a folder and you just drag your assets into the assets folder in Unity. When we do this, it's going to make a copy of your models and integrate it into the project. I've actually already done this, but I want to kind of let you see I have a number of Blender robots that you guys created in class with students. And if I just drag the whole folder into assets, then it's copying it into the Unity project. And then from there, you actually can open the folder in Unity and you can drag and drop to bring it into your scene. So the surface, it's pretty easy. And this, by the way, I'm using the direct Blender files as opposed to copying them into other formats. So I can take this and just drag and drop it to bring it into the scene. And then I might scale it. Maybe I'll switch to scale tool for a second and start to enlarge this. Or maybe even better, I can come over here and start to make changes. So it sees it as that default of 1 meter in all directions. Move it up higher. And then a couple things that are interesting. One that it's bringing in all the objects. If you look over at the hierarchy, I can see the file name and open it up, and I can see all the pieces that were used to create this object. Let's take a peek at it. So this little teddy bear, I think it is, created back in Blender, retains all of its parts. Just rotate again a little bit here. I've also brought in some elements I don't necessarily need. So there's a camera and light coming from Blender, but it's actually going to be better just to use the Unity lighting, Unity camera. So what I'm going to be doing is opening up the blend file and making some edits to it to prepare it for use over here. One advantage of dragging in the Blender format is that if I open that file and edit it, it'll be updated back here in Unity. So that's probably a good workflow. And again, I can maybe drag in another one. And it's funny, you even see like a spotlight there. There's the figure, but it's just that it's coming in with things like lighting from Blender. It's a little robot there. So I'm going to go ahead and open that, maybe do a few steps to prepare it before I work with it here. It may look like the bear's facing the wrong direction, by the way. I think we're seeing is behind, but part of that is that the X, Y, and Z axis is measured differently. The coordinates are measured differently in Unity. So you may want to transform that. I also want to throw out that since it's recognizing all the pieces of your original blend file, it's really helpful if you name things. Like these are just, looks like made out of spheres that are numbered. So it's harder to choose these pieces and know what part they are. So I want to remind you that back in Blend, you can name all of those parts. And the more organized you are in the naming structure, the easier it is going to be to edit it here. These are also kind of made out of spheres. So let's go back and look at Blender and maybe so you can pick up like a few best practices that'll help us. This one I think included a floor. I'm going to throw out, but we don't really need that element attached to the object. It's better for me to create things like the base right in Unity. So one best practice is to have each blend object in an independent file, and that you're skipping things like camera, lighting, and walls or floors, anything like that you inserted earlier, you could remove. This one, Tia has named it better. So I see objects like arm, body, eye, so it's a little easier to figure out the object here. So try to again name those objects back in the blend file is one of the best practices. Remove that. But it does show you the workflow. Again, I just want to recap that I started by just dragging actually a whole folder into Unity's asset area. It's copied it into Unity, and then from there I'm opening the folder and dragging and dropping. So it does give you the basic steps, and then our next recording will look closer at some of the Blender best practices.